I remember so many nights laying in bed with my husband beside me. And, he said goodnight and he snuggles up against me, wraps his arms over me, and falls sound asleep. And you would think that as a wife, that would make me feel warm and protected and cared for and valued. But it didn't. I froze like a statue. Not again. I gotta lay here like this again? My whole body would tense up and everything inside of me would recoil against him. Afraid to move, I would just lay there staring at the ceiling. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. And I would lay there some nights wondering, what is wrong with me? This is my husband. Why do I feel this way? There must be something inside of me that's broken. I should feel loved and cared for. And so I would try to analyze all the different things that were wrong with me. Other nights, I would lay there and try to force myself to go to sleep. I'll just go to sleep because when I'm sleeping, then I don't have to think these thoughts and my body will relax. Well, I don't know about you, but if you've ever tried to force yourself to sleep while you're tense and afraid to move, that doesn't work out too well. And so instead, I laid there for hours. Another option would be I just kind of would start wiggling free and wiggle myself. And in fact, if I wiggled enough, he would kind of roll over a little bit or his arm would move. And finally, I'd be out from under his arm and I'd go to the far edge of the bed, laying on my side, facing away from him, so tense and then afraid to move because if I moved, he might think I'm awake and he might roll back over up against me. For some reason, even though we had a king-size bed, it was never big enough. I didn't understand how he could take, 75% of the bed, 80% of the bed, but I realized he just kept scooting closer to me. And the closer he scooted to me, the closer I got to the edge of the bed. I laid on that hip so many times in that tense situation that I began having hip pain. Now, this was just to sleep. I'm not even talking about the nights that he took more interest. When I heard those words, "Do you want to play around tonight?" Those words just made me cringe. And I didn't understand this. Again, what's wrong with me? Surely there's something wrong with me. And I began trying to do the research of why can't I feel emotionally connected or why can't I feel intimate? Why don't I want to be intimate with my husband? Now, our marriage didn't start this way. So what happened? Today, I want to talk to you about a question that lingers in the heart of so many. Why can't I feel intimate with my partner? I want to assure you that you are not alone in asking this question. Intimacy, that deep connection that we all crave, can feel impossible when you are caught in the web of emotional abuse. Someone recently put a Facebook post in the group that said, "Please, could you do a podcast on why the covert narcissist behavior makes you not want to be intimate with them?" They went on to say, "I struggle with mine touching me at all. It's causing huge problems in our relationship." Well, I understand this, but you got to realize that that's not where the problem started. They went on to say that someone else shared in an article that how coming up from behind you and hugging you while you're doing the dishes makes you jump and panic, even though it seems like a nice act. Well, before we dive into this, let me share you a story. Picture a woman who, one quiet evening, tries to tell her husband about a tough day at work. Her voice is soft, her guard is down, her vulnerability on full display. But instead of compassion, she's met with a sigh of impatience and the words, "Why do you always have to complain about everything?" Well, now she's done. She retreats inside, she clams up, and she feels incredibly lonely. The moment that she thought would bring them closer instead becomes a weapon to hurt her. So what happens over time? She learns to keep her thoughts to herself, building walls around her heart brick by brick. And just like that, intimacy begins to erode. Picture a man sitting alone at a kitchen table late at night. The house is quiet, but his mind is anything but. He's replaying the events of the day. The sharp words from her, the subtle put-downs, the way his wife rolled her eyes when he shared something that he was proud of. Earlier that evening, he had even mustered the courage to suggest that they spend some time together, maybe watching a movie or just talking. And her sharp words still ring in his ears. Why would I waste my evening that way? He didn't argue. He never does anymore. Instead, he just retreated into silence, cleaning up the kitchen, doing everything he can to avoid another cutting remark. And now he sits there wondering, why can't I feel close to her? Why do I feel so alone, even when she's right here beside me? Does this sound familiar? Emotional abuse doesn't always look like shouting and slamming doors. Sometimes it's just the simple, quiet erosion of intimacy through criticism, dismissal, and distance. A friend of mine saw a magazine cover that made her skin crawl. On the cover was a woman cooking dinner, and a guy had walked up behind her, had wrapped his arms around her, and actually wrapped one arm then across her chest, across her shoulders. Both individuals, though, had these big smiles on their faces. But she raised the question, do normal, healthy people in narcissistic or non-manipulative relationships, do they actually like this? Because I can't imagine it. Do you think about this magazine cover and think, oh, how sweet. I love the closeness that they share. Or do you look at it and say, ugh, my insides would shrivel up? Well, that might depend on whether you've been in an abusive relationship or not. You see, the covert narcissist will make you feel like the lack of intimacy is all your fault. It's all your fault that you don't want to be around them. I laid in bed with his arms wrapped around me thinking, what's wrong with me? Well, this is before I realized that his behavior was abusive, that his behavior was where the story started. This was before I laid the responsibility of the space between us on him. If someone told you that you were stupid 5% of the time that you were around them, would you feel close to them? Would you feel safe with them? Would you be willing to be vulnerable with them? Or would you begin to pull away? And would it be your fault for pulling away? Or would it be their fault for telling you you're stupid 5% of the time? You see, you are having a normal response to bad behavior. But before we realize that we need to look at the bad behavior, what do? We go to therapy to learn how to be more sexually attracted to our partner. We go to the doctor to learn what's wrong with us. We try medications and hormones. People try to just force their way through it. I should be more attracted to them, right? What's wrong with me? And then I'll go, okay, I can do this. I will be intimate with my partner and I will enjoy it. Damn it. Yeah, how does that work out? You are having a very normal reaction to a person that you do not feel safe with. A covert narcissist impact on intimacy is profound and heartbreaking. Intimacy requires trust. It requires safety. These qualities are absent in relationships with a covert narcissist. And here's how they disrupt intimacy. Imagine opening up to someone only to have your words twisted and thrown back at you later. Oh, that's right. You don't have to imagine it because you lived it. Covert narcissists undermine your trust through the subtle invalidation and the inconsistency leaving you hesitant to share your feelings. Well, this does not create an environment of trust. It erodes it. You try to connect, but they lack genuine emotional depth, and they are emotionally unavailable. Even though they will tell you that they're there for you, their surface level engagement leaves you feeling unseen and unheard, as if you are reaching out to an apparition. You are reaching out to someone who isn't really there. One day they're warm and attentive, but the next day they're cold and critical. This unpredictability leaves you emotionally exhausted and unable to build a stable connection. When you start wondering why you can't be intimate with them, back the story up. Back it up to the behavior that's been going on in all the years leading up to this. Have you ever confided in them only to have your words then used against you later? This betrayal discourages openness. Well, duh. And it stifles the foundation of intimacy. When your emotional energy is spent managing their moods and avoiding conflict, there just isn't any energy left for nurturing connection. You become too drained to invest in intimacy. Love and attention feel like rewards that you have to earn from them. But this dynamic undermines equality and mutual respect. Healthy relationships are about give and take. But with a covert narcissist, all they do is take, and all you do is give. You find yourself giving endlessly and receiving little to nothing in return. Even physical closeness with them feels hollow. Emotional intimacy, the glue that binds physical connection, is missing. So what are the signs that intimacy is eroding? Many of these signs were there long before our eyes got open. You see, your body knows long before your mind figures it out. When you start feeling yourself recoiling from their touch, it's time to start thinking about what's really going on in this relationship. So what are some of the signs that intimacy is eroding? Conversations stay surface level. Because so many topics are not safe, you start making a checklist of all the topics you cannot talk about with them. Communication becomes strained. Misunderstandings are frequent. You feel unseen, unheard, and invalidated by your partner, and resentment and irritation grow. This is a normal response to bad behavior. How about the physical signs? Hugs, kisses, and other physical gestures become less frequent. Physical intimacy starts feeling mechanical. You just start feeling like you're going through the motions. And you avoid physical contact altogether. There's some behavioral signs that show up when one partner starts to withdraw or isolate. Efforts to spend quality time, they just start going away. Conflicts are left unresolved, which is pretty much all the conflicts with a covert narcissist. You can't resolve them. You can't reconcile. So the tension just lingers. You feel lonely, even when you're sitting right beside them. You question whether they care, and your exhaustion is overwhelming. Now let's pause here for a moment. I want to ask you, have you ever found yourself thinking, if only I were more patient, more loving, more understanding, things would be different? You are not alone in those thoughts. But intimacy is not a solo effort. You can't be the one doing all the work for an environment of trust, safety, and intimacy. It is a two-way street. It is completely necessary for both parties to show up. And if your partner is not meeting you with vulnerability, emotional availability, effort, the erosion of intimacy is going to happen. It's inevitable, and it's not your fault. Intimacy is one of the most beautiful parts of human connection. It allows us to be seen, loved, and understood for who we truly are. If you're struggling to feel intimate with your partner, know this: you are not broken. You are having a normal response to bad behavior. You deserve a relationship where intimacy flows freely, built on trust, safety, and mutual respect. And yes, these relationships do exist. Thank you for sharing this time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, I want to reach right through here and give you a great big hug. I can't go hug the world, so I do it through my podcast. But please know that you deserve safety. You deserve to be seen. Your feelings do matter. You are not alone on this path, and I am here to walk it with you. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism podcast. If you are struggling with covert narcissism in your life, I help people to heal from covert narcissistic abuse. If you are struggling with the isolation, the self-doubt, and the obsessive thinking, then this is the program for you. I offer both group and individual options. This is live, personalized coaching that is specific to covert narcissism. Reach out to me anytime. You can find me at my website, covertnarcissism.com. I'm not a therapist and you are not a victim. I am a coach and you are a survivor. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson and the Covert Narcissism podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. It does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and information provided.
Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy Holiday.